Right. So we're diving into Moby Dick. And I know a lot of you are familiar with the story already, but we're not just doing a plot summary. We really want to like go deep and like understand the themes, the historical context, why this book still matters, centuries later. And to do that, we're going to be using excerpts from the book itself.
Of course.
Some historical accounts of whaling, even some sea shanties.
Wow.
And I got to say, like, in preparing for this, I came across some pretty wild stuff.
I bet.
Like, did you know there was a real-life inspiration for Captain Ahab?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And get this, whaling ships, they were kind of like these floating democracies.
Oh, interesting.
But also with like a really strict hierarchy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a total contradiction, and it's something that Melville explores throughout the book.
Fascinating.
Oh, and don't want to spoil too much,
Okay.
but we're also going to talk about what they did with a whale's head.
Oh.
Like the practical uses involves a lot of oil. Let's just say that.
All right.
I'm intrigued.
But to really understand all this, we got to start with our narrator, Ishmael.
Yeah, call me Ishmael.
Right.
What an opening line, right?
I know.
It just pulls you in immediately.
It does.
And, he's a guy who's clearly dealing with some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he even compares his soul to a damp, drizzly November.
Yeah.
But instead of going down a darker path,
right,
he chooses to go to sea.
He does.
It's almost like a form of self-preservation.
It's like he's saying, like, everybody's got problems.
Yeah.
But I'd rather face the vastness of the ocean than, what he says.
What's that?
A pistol and ball.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and there's this, like, dark humor in that. Especially when you compare it to Cato's suicide that he mentions earlier.
Yeah, that contrast, it's so deliberate on Melville's part.
You think so?
I do. It really highlights Ishmael's self-awareness.
Okay.
Like, he knows he could easily spiral, but he chooses to confront those feelings by embracing the unknown.
And that fascination with the ocean, that desire to find solace and adventure in the face of life's challenges. I think that's something that resonates with us even today.
Oh, for sure.
Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what your own ocean is.
That's a good point.
Like, what vastness are you seeking out in your own life?
Yeah.
But speaking of seeking solace in unexpected places, we can't forget about Queequeg.
Ah, Queequeg.
Right, this tattooed harpooner from the South Seas.
Yeah.
Who completely defies our expectations.
He really does.
At first, Ishmael is like terrified of him.
Right.
Prejudiced even.
Oh, yeah.
But then their relationship evolves into this like deep, genuine friendship.
Yeah.
And you see Queequeg's inherent dignity.
Totally.
His complex character just shine through. He's not just a stereotype.
Right.
He's a fully realized person.
Absolutely.
And that scene where they basically get married in the Spouter Inn.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Hilarious and heartwarming all at once.
I know.
I mean, here's Queequeg, the so-called savage.
Right.
Displaying more civility and grace than drunken whalers brawling around them.
That's true.
It really flips the script on who the civilized ones really are.
It does. And it challenges the reader to confront their own prejudices.
Oh, yeah.
Much like Ishmael has to confront his own.
Right.
But of course, there's another character who embodies prejudice and obsession in a much darker way.
Okay.
Captain Ahab.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is where things get real dark.
They do.
Ahab is consumed by this single-minded quest for revenge against Moby Dick.
That white whale.
Yeah, the one that took his leg.
Yeah.
And the descriptions of that encounter.
Oh, man.
Brutal.
Yeah.
You can practically feel the physical and psychological scars that Ahab carries.
The loss of his leg.
Yeah.
It becomes symbolic of so much more.
How so?
It's a physical manifestation of his wounded pride.
Oh.
His feeling of being cheated by fate. And that drives him to this point of almost manic obsession.
It does.
Yeah.
But we can't forget that Ahab isn't operating in a vacuum.
Right.
He's the captain of the Pequod.
Yes.
And the Pequod itself is a fascinating microcosm of humanity.
It is.
What stood out to you about the Pequod as a setting?
Well, it's described as this vessel of contradictions.
Okay.
You've got a diverse crew representing all these different nationalities and backgrounds.
Right.
But they're functioning within a rigid hierarchy. There's this strange kind of democracy at play.
Okay.
But it's always under the shadow of Ahab's tyrannical leadership.
Wow. And physically, the ship is described as almost grotesque in its beauty.
It is.
Adorned with the bones of past conquests.
Yeah.
These stark reminders of both the glory and the brutality of whaling.
Right.
It really sets the stage for this epic struggle that unfolds.
And that's Melville's brilliance.
Yeah.
The way he uses the Pequod to reflect the larger themes of the book.
Okay.
The tension between individual freedom and societal structures.
The allure and danger of ambition and, of course, the stark reality of whaling itself.
And that reality, it's a far cry from any romantic notions we might have about life at sea.
Absolutely.
Melville doesn't shy away from the gruesome details.
He doesn't. He paints a very visceral picture.
He does.
Of the whale hunts.
Yeah.
The danger faced by the crew.
Right.
And the single-minded pursuit of profit that drove this entire industry.
I was reading this account from a real-life whaling captain, Scoresby.
Okay.
And he described a whale shaking its tail.
Yeah.
With such force that it cracked like a whip.
Wow.
And the sound carried for miles.
Really?
Can you imagine witnessing that power firsthand?
It's both awe-inspiring and terrifying.
It is.
And it speaks to the forces these whalers were up against.
And it wasn't just the physical danger.
No.
There was this whole other layer of superstition and folklore surrounding whales and the sea.
Right, like the story of the town hoe.
Exactly. And the belief that harming certain whales could bring bad luck.
It shows that whaling wasn't just about skill and strategy. It was also about chance fate.
Yeah.
And the unpredictable nature of the ocean itself.
It was. Which, of course, brings us to Moby Dick.
The white whale.
He's so much more than just a whale, isn't he?
I know, right?
He becomes this symbol representing something vast and unknowable.
Right.
This kind of primal force that humans can try to understand but can never fully grasp.
He represents the limits of human understanding.
He does.
The things we can't control no matter how hard we try.
Right. And there's a whole section in the book where Melville dives deep into the color white and its symbolism.
Okay.
Comparing Moby Dick to other white creatures in literature and mythology.
Like what?
Well, like the white steed of the prairies. It's a symbol of majesty and power.
Right.
But in Moby Dick, whiteness becomes this ambiguous symbol, embodying both the beauty and the danger of the natural world.
So we've got Ishmael's personal journey.
Yeah.
Queequeg challenging stereotypes. Ahab's descent into obsession.
Right.
The Pequod as this microcosm of society.
Yeah.
And this whale that represents the unknowable.
A lot to unpack.
It's a lot.
It is. We're just scratching the surface.
It feels like it. Where do we even go from here?
Well, I think it's time to move beyond the literal.
Okay.
And delve into the deeper themes Melville is exploring in Moby Dick.
All right.
Because those are the things that make this book truly timeless.
Okay.
And trust me, they're more relevant today than ever. You mentioned scratching the surface. Well, one of the things that lie beneath is this constant push and pull between man and nature that Melville explores.
Right.
The ocean is this powerful, indifferent force, beautiful and deadly in equal measure.
Yeah. And it's not just a backdrop.
No.
These whalers are literally risking their lives.
They are.
To extract profit from its depths.
Yeah.
Pushing the boundaries of human endurance. All to hunt this creature that represents something so much bigger than themselves.
It really makes you question, what is our place in the natural world?
Right.
Are we meant to dominate and exploit it or to coexist with it?
Yeah.
Is there even a possibility of true understanding?
That's a good question.
These are questions we're still grappling with today, especially with the climate crisis looming large.
And those questions tie directly into the idea of fate versus free will, another huge theme in Moby Dick.
Yeah.
Ahab is so convinced that he can defy fate by hunting down Moby Dick.
He is.
But the more he chases that whale, the more entangled he becomes in his own obsession.
It's like he's trying to impose his will on this force of nature that ultimately operates outside of human control.
Yeah.
It raises the question, how much control do we really have over our own lives?
It does.
Are we masters of our destiny, or are we just passengers on a ship heading towards an inevitable end?
I don't know. But I wonder, is Ahab's unwavering determination entirely a bad thing?
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, isn't there a certain kind of tragic heroism in his relentless pursuit? He's going up against impossible odds, risking everything for what he believes in.
That's a great point. Ahab is such a complex character.
He is.
You can admire his strength, his refusal to back down, but at the same time, you see how that single-minded focus can lead to destruction.
I do.
He's so consumed by revenge that he loses sight of everything else, including the well-being of his crew.
It's almost like he becomes the embodiment of the whale itself.
Wow. Yeah.
This force of nature that's both magnificent and terrifying.
Right.
Capable of both creation and destruction.
Exactly. And that brings us to the question of good and evil.
Okay.
Another theme that Melville tackles head-on. Where do you draw the line between heroism and madness?
Yeah.
Is Ahab a villain for leading his crew to their deaths? Or is he a tragic hero driven by forces beyond his control?
I mean, there's no easy answer.
There isn't.
And that's what makes the book so compelling.
And it is, but it's not all darkness and obsession.
No.
There are these moments of genuine connection and compassion that really shine through.
Like what?
Well, you know, Queequeg's unwavering loyalty to Ishmael, Starbuck's attempts to reason with Ahab.
Yeah.
These moments suggest that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, there's still hope for humanity.
I love that you brought up those moments.
Yeah.
They're like these flickers of light in a vast and unforgiving sea.
They are.
And they remind us that even in the most challenging circumstances, even when surrounded by darkness, there's always the possibility of kindness and connection.
There is.
Speaking of a vast and unforgiving sea.
Okay.
Let's shift gears a bit and dive into the historical context of Moby Dick.
All right.
The book was published in 1851.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of a period of rapid industrialization and expansion in America.
And the whaling industry was booming at that time.
Yes.
You know, ships were venturing further and further into the ocean, driven by this insatiable demand for whale oil.
Oh, yeah.
Which was used for everything.
Right.
Lighting lamps to lubricating machinery.
It was brutal business, though, wasn't it?
It was.
Those historical accounts are full of details about the dangers involved.
Yeah.
The back-breaking labor.
Right.
And the toll it took on both the whalers and the whales themselves.
It was a tough life.
It makes you wonder if Melville was trying to capture some of that unease about the consequences of this unchecked exploitation.
Absolutely. There's a growing sense in the book that this kind of relentless pursuit of profit can have devastating consequences.
Yeah.
It raises questions about the balance between progress and destruction.
Right.
About the limits of human ambition. And those questions are even more relevant today as we face the consequences of climate change and environmental degradation.
You know, it's interesting. While I was reading those historical accounts, I was struck by how meticulously the whalers documented everything.
Oh, really?
They were obsessed with measurement and classification, almost as if they were trying to impose order on this chaotic and unpredictable world.
It reminds me of Ahab's pursuit of Moby Dick.
Yeah, how so?
Well, there's this parallel between the whalers trying to understand and categorize the whale through scientific observation and Ahab trying to conquer and control it through sheer force of will.
And there's even a whole chapter in Moby Dick called Cetology.
There is.
Where Melville himself breaks down the different types of whales.
He does.
With almost scientific precision.
It's like he's mirroring that obsession with classification, that human need to put everything in neat little boxes, even something as vast and unknowable as a whale.
It's such a brilliant move on Melville's part.
It is. He weaves together fact and fiction.
He does.
Blending these detailed descriptions of whaling with symbolic and metaphorical language, creating a world that feels both real and mythical at the same time.
And that obsession with categorization, with trying to understand and control the world around us, is ultimately what leads to Ahab's downfall, isn't it?
It is. The whale, by its very nature, defies these attempts at definition and control.
It does.
It represents the limits of human knowledge, the things that will always remain mysterious and beyond our grasp.
That's the paradox at the heart of Moby Dick.
It is. We crave knowledge.
We do.
We strive to understand the world around us.
Yeah.
But there are always limits to our comprehension. There will always be mysteries that remain unsolved. And perhaps accepting that is part of what it means to be human.
Speaking of accepting things beyond our control, one detail from the source material that really stuck with me was the process of how the whalers processed the whales. After they were captured.
Okay.
It's one thing to read about a whale hunt,
Yeah.
but the sheer scale of the operation afterward.
It's hard to even imagine the whole ship would be transformed into this gruesome floating factory with fires burning day and night to render the blubber into oil.
The source material described the deck being slick with grease and blood, the air thick with smoke, and the stench of burning flesh.
Yeah.
It must have been absolutely overwhelming to the senses.
And incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
The fires were a constant hazard.
Right.
And the men were working in cramped, slippery conditions. One wrong move could be fatal.
And then there was the spermaceti organ in the whale's head.
Oh, yeah.
It's this bizarre, almost mythical substance.
It is.
That they extracted to make high-quality oil. It's both fascinating and repulsive at the same time.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
This brutal, bloody industry was fueled by a demand for things that brought light and beauty into people's lives. Lamp oil, candles, even cosmetics.
It makes you think about the hidden costs of consumption.
It does.
The complex web of supply and demand that connects us to things we might not want to think about.
It's just another layer of complexity in this already multi-layered story.
And it brings us back to the idea that Moby Dick isn't just about whaling.
Right.
It's about the choices we make.
Yeah.
The systems we participate in. And the consequences of those choices, both intended and unintended.
It's a book that forces us to confront the darker aspects of human nature.
It does.
But it also challenges us to examine our own role in these systems and to consider what we might do differently.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so enduringly relevant.
I agree.
Even though the world of whaling is long gone, the questions Moby Dick raises are as urgent as ever.
For all the darkness and brutality that we've been talking about, there's also this undeniable beauty to Moby Dick.
There is.
Melville's language is so rich and evocative.
It is.
He captures the grandeur and mystery of the ocean.
He does.
In a way that few writers ever have.
I think those sea shanties we mentioned earlier, they add another layer to that beauty.
They do.
There's something so haunting and evocative about them. This sense of longing and melancholy that speaks to the loneliness of life at sea.
I keep thinking about that line from the Nantucket song.
Which one?
So be cheery, my lads. Let your hearts never fail, while the bold harpooner is striking the whale.
Oh, yeah.
It's both a celebration of this dangerous life and a lament for the sacrifices made.
Their songs offer a glimpse into the lives of these men who faced incredible hardships and dangers. They're songs of camaraderie, of shared experience, of a bond forged in the face of the unknown.
And even though the world of whaling is long gone, those themes of courage, resilience, and the search for meaning in a vast and unpredictable world, they still resonate with us today.
They do, absolutely. I think that's why Moby Dick continues to captivate readers centuries later. It speaks to something universal about the human experience. This desire to understand the world and our place in it. Even when confronted with the vastness and mystery of the universe.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Moby Dick, I have one final thought-provoking question to leave you with.
All right, I'm ready.
If Ahab had succeeded in killing Moby Dick, would he have found peace?
That is a great question.
Or was the pursuit the obsession itself? The real driving force all along?
Now, that's a question worth pondering.
It is.
Perhaps Ahab's quest wasn't really about the whale at all, but about his own inner demons, his need to conquer forces he couldn't control. Maybe in the end, the whale was just a stand-in for all the things in life that we can't explain or control.
Maybe the real lesson of Moby Dick is that sometimes the pursuit is more important than the destination. It's the journey with all its challenges and triumphs that truly shapes us.
It's about confronting the unknown, embracing the mystery, and finding meaning in the midst of chaos. And who knows, maybe that's the true legacy of Moby Dick.
That's it.
A reminder that the search for meaning is a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
And that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, there's always the possibility of finding beauty, connection, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
What a great way to sum it all up.
Thanks.
To everyone listening, we encourage you to dive into Moby Dick yourself. And see what you discover.
It's worth it.
This book has so many layers.
It does.
And offers a unique experience with every reading.
Absolutely.
And if you do let us know what you think, we'd love to hear your own interpretations and insights.
We would.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.